So, in my last video, I discussed some of my own theories and thoughts around the reveal of the new Mario Kart game in the Switch 2 reveal trailer, and also some of my thoughts around whether or not we could expect that game to possibly be a launch title for the console, which I do think makes sense, even though I spent a lot of time in that video discussing why we don't really know that as a concrete fact. But today I want to switch gears a little bit and focus on the other big Nintendo game that we know is currently in development and close to release, which of course is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and if you know me, you know that I will find any reason in the world to talk about Metroid. So obviously, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is the game that dominates my every waking video game thought. In the Switch 2 era, where now we're on the other side of that reveal and we know we've got a direct coming up in April, that's the other thing dominating one half of my brain. But other than that, it's obviously Metroid, which I've been talking about and thinking about for like 8 years now since the game was first revealed and then slid into development hell. There is no doubt in my mind that the game is going to absolutely deliver. It is going to blow us away. It is going to blow me away. And I can't wait to play it, whether it's on the Switch 1 or the Switch 2 or even both. And so, in this conversation, I want to focus on what I personally think would be my ideal Switch 2 Metroid Prime 4 situation. And what I mean by that is, what is the ideal way that I want Metroid Prime 4 Beyond to be available on my Switch 2 or playable on my Switch 2? Whether that has to do with when the game releases on the Switch 2, if it even comes to the Switch 2 at all, if it comes to the Switch 1 first and then the Switch 2 later, if it's only relegated to backwards compatibility, if there's a separate definitive edition release on the Switch 2, maybe there's just an upgrade patch that improves the performance and the visuals and graphics, all of these different scenarios. That's what I want to discuss, the best way to experience Metroid Prime 4 Beyond on my Switch 2. Of course, I'm talking about this as a Metroid superfan, which you guys know, and I think the most important thing to address first is the when of it all. When will we be able to play Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? And that obviously goes beyond the Switch 2. When is that game going to release at all? I think it is going to release, my current guess is like late summer. So maybe late July, but I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards August. August or September maybe. I would love it to come out like tomorrow, of course. But currently that's kind of just the general ballpark time frame that I'm thinking. That's based on nothing more than a guess, so this isn't like an inside information kind of thing. I'm just trying to think about what makes sense, and I also happen to think that the Switch 2 will likely release in June or maybe late spring, early summer. And so if Metroid Prime 4 came out around August or September, then that means the Switch 2 would already be on the market if any of my guesses turned out to be accurate. If that happened, then that definitely means that Metroid Prime 4 as a launch title might not be what actually happens. And it's strange because in the same breath, I also kind of think Metroid Prime 4 could make sense as a launch title for the Switch 2. So it really just depends on if they're doing a cross-gen thing, if they're just going to release the game on the Switch 1 and rely on the backwards compatibility as a way to play the game on the Switch 2. Like, Nintendo is basically saying, just take your Switch 1 Metroid Prime 4 cartridge and plug it into your Switch 2 and enjoy it that way, which is fine and great, and we'll all do it, and it's exciting, but wouldn't we also be missing an opportunity to have an updated, upgraded experience of Prime 4 on the next generation Switch 2? I think we would be missing that opportunity, and it's what I want. And so that's why I still ultimately would prefer, again, if I could pick, even though I know my release guesses for the Switch 2 and Prime 4 don't line up to be a launch title, if I could really choose, I would want Prime 4 with either a definitive edition next generation release or a day one next generation patch to be a launch title for the Switch 2. So on day one, I can buy a Switch 2, I can buy Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, some sort of Switch 2 enhanced version of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and that's what I can spend the first 3 weeks of my life doing with the Switch 2 when it comes out. Playing a brand new Metroid Prime game, playing it the best way possible, a next generation visual style and performance and all that stuff. Maybe even extra content, although I doubt they would do that. If I could choose, that's what I would hope that they would do. It's not something that we know will happen, but it kind of makes sense, right? We know about Prime 4. We've now seen the game running. Now we know about the Switch 2. They both have the nebulous 2025 release date. We're January. The whole year is still ahead of us. So even though Prime 4 will be releasing on the Switch 1, it's not impossible for it to release on both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 same day, and for that day to also be Switch 2 release day. Maybe it's a long shot, but it's possible, and if I could pick, that's what I'd want to happen. Now, to be fair, another positive scenario for the release of the game, if it wasn't during launch, would be for Metroid Prime 4 to maybe release a little bit later in the year, closer to holiday. And I know a lot of people would scoff at the idea of Prime 4 being one of Nintendo's tentpole holiday releases, the same way people would scoff at it also being a launch title, so it's like you can't win with some folks. Only Metroid fans really understand what I'm saying when I believe in this stuff. But I do believe that Prime 4 could work very well either as a launch title for the Switch 2 or, yes, as one of the tentpole holiday titles. Maybe not the main tentpole holiday title, but if we were to guess that maybe Mario Kart launches the Switch 2, who's to say that later in the year, maybe August, September, or October would be Metroid Prime 4, and then let's say in November for Black Friday and for Christmas shopping season, that's when the new Mario game comes out. So that the brand new next generation Switch 2 could have two titles to release in that fall holiday period. Why does it have to be just one? Why would it have to be just a new Mario or Mario Kart if they flipped 3D Mario and Mario Kart? Maybe Mario Kart is the big holiday title. They could also still have Metroid, man. I think Prime 4 works as either in the Switch era in a brand new generation. In the first 6 months to year, they can reset the expectations for the sales potential of Metroid with Prime 4. And so that's why I think either as a launch title or as one of the big holiday promotional titles, Prime 4 could work in either slot. Another topic around Metroid Prime 4 I want to revisit is the idea of these new Joy-Con 2 mouse controls. I made a whole video talking about how the idea of Joy-Cons acting as a mouse, which is all but confirmed. Actually, I'm just going to call it confirmed. Screw that, man. It's confirmed. We saw it in the trailer. We know that they can do that. And we had already kind of predicted that anyway because of the leaked images. And so I made a video discussing how I think that the idea of using a Joy-Con as a mouse for first-person Metroid Prime 4 controls is awesome and so exciting, and I love it and I can't wait to try it. I spent a lot of that video expressing my concern on, most people don't play sitting at a computer screen with like their Switch hooked up to a computer monitor. Most people either play handheld or, like me, just play on a TV like in my living room. I finish an 8 to 10 hour day of work in this exact room I'm in now, in this exact chair, with my computer monitors that are all off to the side here for work only. And as soon as I finish here, I'm up and out of this room, and I'm sitting in my living room, where all of my consoles are, or my retro consoles that are also sitting here behind me. But my Switch is out of my living room on my big 65-inch TV with my surround sound setup. That's where I play 10 feet away from my giant TV on a big comfy couch playing my main consoles, which includes my Switch. I'm going to want to play these mouse controls for Metroid Prime 4, if they exist, sitting on my couch at my big TV. So I don't know how they would find a way to make that comfortable without selling us a weird mouse pad that has to sit on our lap, and who knows how that would work. Anyway, all of that stuff aside, I still love the idea, and I want it to be a part of the game, and I kind of think it will be a part of the game. So, provided there's a comfortable way for someone like me to sit on my big couch and enjoy Metroid Prime 4 on my TV with those mouse controls, then I want those mouse controls. And I think the other big bullet point to talk about is something I've already touched on here, and it's the performance, the graphics, and the overall quality of a next-generation Switch 2 version of Metroid Prime 4. And this topic has been beaten to death. Every time I talk about the game, I have to bring up all of these points. There's a few ways we could play Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch 2. One is the least exciting, which is just standard backwards compatibility. You plug your Switch 1 cartridge into your Switch 2, and it's the identical last-generation Switch 1 version of the game, which we still think will be amazing. It looks beautiful as is running on the Switch 1, but with no enhancements, you're just playing the identical version on your Switch 2, no big deal. Or, I think the ideal scenario for a lot of us, for me at least, would be for them to have made and optimized a different Switch 2 specific version of the game. That sell it separately, make a separate Switch 2 retail package of Metroid Prime 4 where that game only works on the Switch 2 and it has way better graphics and performance. Truly, if I could pick, that's what I'd want. And I'd even, hell, Nintendo, you want to hear how much of a Metroid sap I am? I will buy both versions just to have them both. I will buy a Switch 1 version that I'll probably never open and play, and I'll buy that Switch 2 version, and I will open and play that one, and enjoy the definitive, better next-generation version. Because we can't forget that Metroid Prime 4, if they have a next-generation optimized version, will be a fantastic showcase for the graphics and the power of the Switch 2. More so than something like Mario Kart. Like, Mario Kart 9, I'm sure will be beautiful and great, but will it really be the ultimate showcase of the graphics of the console? Probably not. It's not a negative thing, it's just a truth, just based on what those games are. But Prime 4, again, even looking at the Switch 1 version we've seen, that is the kind of game that can say, look at what we've made. This is what the Switch 2 can do. Now enjoy this incredible, phenomenal, beautiful next-generation Metroid experience. It just makes too much sense to me. So I'd hope that they would release two versions, one built for the Switch 1 and one built for the Switch 2. But that brings us to the other third option here, which again I've discussed, and maybe there's just an upgrade patch that they make available. So your Switch 1 Metroid Prime 4 cartridge plugs into your Switch 2, maybe for $10, you can buy a Switch 2 upgrade patch that applies to that game, and suddenly you're playing the Switch 2 optimized version, but it's because you just bought basically a download file. And that to me is fine. You know, I've purchased the Director's Cut Next Generation patch for both Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding on my PS5, and it's good, and it's fine. So I would do that for Metroid Prime 4 as well. It would be better than nothing. Even though I would prefer an individually optimized separate release for the Switch 2, if we got the upgrade patch instead, that's a fine compromise just to have an enhanced next-generation version of this game. So time will tell. It is an exciting time. We're all pumped for the Switch 2. It only took 2 weeks into 2025 to finally freaking see the thing. Nintendo got to finally get that monkey off their back and say, here, world, here's the damn Switch 2 you've been waiting for. Now we have to wait for more information. The April Direct will tell us everything. All I really care about right now is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It is my priority, and even if it's only a Switch 1 title again, I will still be satisfied. The current trailer blew me away. You can watch my reaction to understand how excited I was for it. But of course, if I could choose, I'd want a next-generation updated version. Who wouldn't want that for Prime 4? So, as I've discussed in this video, there's a few ways it could happen. It could release at launch, it could release for holiday, it could release day one, it could release later. It could release as a Switch 1 game, it could release as a cross-gen game, maybe there's a next-generation patch, maybe it has these mouse controls, maybe it doesn't have the mouse controls, and it's just got either dual analog or standard motion, which would also be fine, even though I really want to try that mouse stuff. There's a lot going on, man, a lot to consider, and, you know, probably by April, we're going to have learned everything we need to know about Metroid Prime 4, including the date. Whether it's a launch title for the Switch 2 or not, I think we're going to learn the date at that time as well. So I guess we'll have to bide our time and wait and see. So these are my thoughts. Share your own below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.